Hey, that GameFi guy here, and today we're going to do something a bit different. I'm going to take a deep dive into a decentralized incubator and launchpad called Starpunk. I've noticed that they've helped fund several projects from past episodes of mine, and I wanted to see how this whole world worked. What's great about these platforms is that we, as normal investors, have the chance to invest in games at their initial private or public sale prices, which are typically well below the exchange listing price. And oh, did I mention no KYC required? But of course, there are catches. So I'm going to see if it's worth it, how to invest, how much investment's needed, and what kind of potential earnings we're looking at. All right, let's get into it. One thing I forgot to mention is that this is not financial advice. I'm just doing research and sharing it with you all. So before we get into the weeds with the project, I just want to show you an example of kind of the profits that can be made. This was their first offering, and it was called Heroes and Empires. And you could purchase the token, their HE token, at about a cent. Or not at exactly 1 cent. And based on today's prices, the game is currently selling for 10 cents a token. So that's a 10x gain right there. So that's just an example. Okay, so let's look at their website. I guess the first thing to note is I mentioned they're an incubator and launchpad. So this platform is focused to both project team and developers and also potential investors. So they do have an accelerator program for developers, but I'm going to look at this more from the investor perspective and as someone that wants to get in early on the games that they're taking a part of and partnering up with. So you can see that they have a spotlight on some of their games, and they'll letting you know what the upcoming and live sales are going to be. And they've also shown completed sales. So how much they've been raising, the all-time high price, and you can get more info on the token by clicking here. So they've done, let's see, two offerings for Idle Cyber, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're pretty new. They've only done 6 games so far, or 6 offerings, and I guess 2 more are to come. So there's not too much of a track record for them at the moment. In addition to getting in early for a particular game token, they sometimes will have NFT sales, like exclusive NFT sales on their site. So that's another thing that I won't get too much into, but they do provide that for certain games. This is more of an important thing. This is where you're going to interact and lock the Starpunk ecosystem tokens, because you need to buy their tokens in order to invest in these game offerings. So we'll definitely be talking about this. And lastly, as part of their ecosystem token, there's a governance and voting model, so you can participate in that as well. So their token, called Starpunk, is SRP, and right now it's valued at about 24 cents, with a fully diluted market cap of around $162 million. If you take a look, since they started out around 50 cents, and so yeah, they're down by a little more than half right now, which, if you want to invest in these games on their platform, is actually a good thing. I'm not going to take too deep a dive into their tokenomics, just because, well, it's not like we have the chance to earn them by playing games, but they don't have that information on their website. You need to go to one of their original funding sources, DAOmaker.com, and if you search for Starpunks on that site, you can get their information, some of which we'll look at here. So their token distributions here and their token release schedule. So why is the token important? Well, the amount that you purchase and stake will determine how much you can invest in these game token releases. So if you go to the SPO rankings tab on their website, you can see down here they have different tiers, and they all require a certain minimum of SRP tokens to be locked. They're also telling you how many participants are in each tier, which is important because the rewards for each tier are distributed among the number of participants. So let's take a deeper look into that. Okay, I'm on their blog site, which you can find the link at the bottom of their homepage. On October 12th, 2021, they have a post for their updated tier system, and it's January 12th right now, 2022. So as of now, this still stands. So this is the information you saw on their main site, the tiers and the total number of SRP tokens required to get into each tier. But now they kind of talk more about the distribution into each tier and kind of how much you can actually get. So for the universal, for example, 22% of the allocation is going into this tier. But the thing to note for all these tiers is that you have your pool size, and but you need to divide it up by the number of participants, which is found on their, on their tier system here. So participants. So for example, right now there's 11 participants in the universal tier. So really, it's 22%. Your individual allocation amount is going to be 22% divided by the number of participants. That's what you can do. The other thing to note on this chart is that there's FCFS. That stands for first come, first serve. So you can see on these more expensive tiers, 100% guaranteed allocation. But these bottom three, they mention FCFS. So that means it's not guaranteed. You need to be able to get in right when that token distribution opens up and claim it as fast as possible. But if you look at the Earth and Solar, so the allocations are higher than the Galaxy and Universal, but that's because only 50% is guaranteed. The other 50% is on a first come, first served basis. So I made a chart kind of showing you how these allowable investments and allocations can work. So let's take a look at that. Basically, there's a few variables such as the current SRP price, the total amount being fundraised and being allocated to everyone on Starpunk, and the number of participants in each tier. So the last few projects that they fundraised, the allocation's been 100,000, so that's why I use that. And of course the current price and the number of participants is shown here. It's actually changed a bit since I originally made it, like 11. It looks like somebody in the universe went down to the galaxy. So let's just change that up right now. Okay, so given those variables, you can see that I'm only looking at the max allowable, or I'm only looking at the guaranteed allocation, because I'm just assuming I was too late for those first come, first serves. So depending on how early you are for that, these numbers are a little different. So the initial investment in order to purchase the SRP token and get into the tier is here. So you can see that for this project, if you go into the highest tier, 50,000, the max allowable investment you can make for this one project is going to be just $2,000. Of course, once you purchase the token and have enough to get locked up in a certain tier, that's just a one-time payment. or one-time investment, I guess you should say, and you don't have to do that for all the future projects, right? Because you already have the token. So it's going to depend on, it might be worth it in the long run, or you need to factor in how many tokens you're going to be investing in the long run. So yeah, just take a look. You can digest this. For the lowest tier, $500, you know, you're not guaranteed anything. Really, it starts out in the earth, and with the current number of participants, by putting in $2,500 for this one project, you can only put in $56, so it seems like the most cost-effective way to get into this platform is by just really putting money in the galaxy and getting that close to $1,000 guaranteed allocation. But of course, if a lot of people do that and there's more participants, you know, maybe it goes from 15 to 30 participants. Well, now the max allowable investment is going to be closer to $400, $450. So you kind of need to look at the numbers for each project to see if it makes sense. I made another chart because there aren't too many games so far that have been offered on this platform. So I just kind of tracked to see what their initial offering price was and what the current price is today, January 12th, and the current gain. So you can see that the current gains in percentages, 1,000%, 410, 160, 1,200. Well, the parallel is their most recent one, so the lockup is, I know for sure, is still in effect. So you can't sell it right now anyways. And we'll get into that later. But the returns are pretty good. They have dropped. They are slowly dropping as, you know, I think just the bear market in general, it's not helping. But depending on, again, you have to kind of factor this in with the initial, your initial investment to really determine if investing in this platform and game is right for you. So the actual investing part and process, they do a pretty good job of explaining. They're always having blog posts for when that happens. Like, for example, the parallel. They have a detailed timeline and instructions on how to get this done. And this is when they tell you not only the timeline, but they'll tell you the initial investment and how much is being allocated and split between all the tiers. So you can see that information here, depending on which tier you're in. So this one, December 24th. So another thing to note, I should say, is it's allocated for the first come, first serve. There's a limited number of participants, right? So they'll kind of tell you, okay, if you are one of the lucky 180 participants, you're going to be able to get 9,000 divided by 180. So maximum allocation per users is $50 if you are one of the first 180 participants. So they have explained it very well here. And then of course they also explain, they have these YouTube videos on how to lock up your tokens, how to buy your tokens. So yeah, I'm not going to go through the steps, but it's very clearly defined on their posts. All right, looking at the team, they don't have team info on their website, but if you go to DAOmaker.com, like I mentioned, and go to the company, search for their company info, you can scroll down to get team info, and you'll notice that 3 out of the 4 co-founders were also members or even founders of this company called VIC Group. So looking at what that is, they're a marketing, event, and production group based out of Paris, Hong Kong, and Los Angeles. We offer the best services to our clients worldwide. So yeah, I think it's a good thing that these marketers who apparently have an established brand, I don't know much about this group, but it would make sense that the people in Starpunk's strength is marketing, because the whole point of this platform, at least from a developer perspective, is to help get the word out on their game. So yeah, you want good marketers for that. Okay, well, that's about it. I think this concept of a decentralized incubator is a great idea because, again, it allows common investors to have the chance to participate in these new token releases. Based on the amount of initial investment required to do it, again, you just need to do the math and figure out if it makes sense to you, and if how many of these platforms you plan, or how many of these new games you plan on investing in. If you only want to get in on maybe 1 or 2 games, it may not be worth it. But if you intend to kind of put some money in all the games that are planning on being released in the future, then I think this is a really good opportunity to get in at these really low prices. The last thing to note is that, I showed you a screenshot of kind of the games that have been released and their token returns. But as the market gets more saturated with games, and as more games get put on these platforms, it's going to be, those returns are probably going to diminish. So you're going to need to be more picky as to which games you'll want to invest in. And hopefully, as time goes on, Starpunk will have more options of games to invest in, so you can have that choice. But of course, that requires research on those individual games, which is why I have my channel. So yeah, just let me know what you think, and let me know your experiences if you have invested in Starpunk. Have you done those first come, first serve waits and tried to get in? Have you been successful? I'd love to hear your experiences on the platform below. And until next time, thanks a lot for watching.